Well, hello and welcome to another Sunday morning coffee with Dr. Childress. Today, I'm going to have a very interesting discussion. There's a lot going on right now that I haven't necessarily been discussing, but have been organizing. And so I'm going to fill you in on what's going on relative to the licensing boards here that we are placing the issues in forensic psychology, in the family courts, child custody evaluations directly into the lap of the licensing boards at this point. And we're going to see what happens. That I understand for all you parents out there, your difficulties. We have two broken systems. Broken mental health system is creating a broken legal system. And I've been working with you for like 15 years in the family courts trying to help you navigate broken systems. However, there's no solution for you as long as the systems remain broken. I know that. So I have been working on a separate vector, a separate line of work to fix the systems. And I've been giving you information that might be helpful to you in navigating the broken systems, but there was no help for you until we fixed the systems. Now we're at the point where I'm going to fix the systems, me. Okay, so I'd like your help. That would be extraordinarily helpful at this point right now, is for parents to kind of organize, and I will provide information on how to do that. But to organize, now is the moment. Right now is the moment where I need you to step forward. Now, a few years ago, I put up a petition to the APA that got 20,000 signatures. I'm hoping I get that level of support again. Tens of thousands of you, all your family members. Now is the time to do something. That this is a inflection point that we are at. So let me describe what's going on and fill you in on the licensing boards and the coming conflict. So one of the issues that I'm involved in currently is past January here. I took this course from the AFCC, Advanced Issues in Family Law, Parent-Child Contact Problems. And there's your instructors, Dr. Deutsch, Leslie Droyd, John Moran, Marcia Klein Pruitt, Matthew Sullivan, and Peggy Ward. Okay, so these are 6 of the top tier forensic custody evaluators working in the field a long time, and they're presenting an advanced course sponsored by the AFCC to obviously train other forensic custody evaluators. These are your top tier folk in the custody evaluation. Well, I took the course and activated my standard 1.04 and 1.05 obligations because I believe there may have been an ethical violation by another psychologist, a group of psychologists, of standard 2.04, 2.01, 9.01, and 2.03, 3.04, variety of at least 5. We'll put 5 on the table of the ethical violations. And so that activates for me 1.04 when I believe there may have been an ethical violation by another psychologist. I believe there has been. Okay, so now I am required to take certain steps. Right? The ethics code is not optional, it's required. So as soon as I take this course, encounter the information that they're presenting, see the ethical violations that are of concern, I have to do something. And what 1.04 says is that I have to notify them informally to seek an informal resolution. And then 1.05 says if that doesn't work, I have to do other things. So let's kind of walk through now. So beginning in January, my 1.04 was triggered. So, well, let's just jump ahead to now. I am currently, so what I did here in response is I sent them a letter, 1.04. They responded, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then that response didn't satisfy the situation. It was not properly resolved in that manner. So now I move into 1.05, which is reporting the ethical violations. And so then I have guidance on what to do there. And 1.05 says to contact appropriate ethics committee, local or national ethics committee. So I contacted the APA ethics committee with a big complaint. Boom, sent that to them. And the appropriate institutional authority, that would be the AFCC. So I contacted them and all their board members. I sent them an email and a complaint, and that'll be coming forward as well. And the licensing boards. And the APA Ethics Committee says we don't look at individual people until it goes through the licensing board. So now they're directing me to go to the licensing boards. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to be filing licensing board complaints against all 6 of those instructors. 2 of them are in California. And so I started with the 2 in California. Leslie Droid was the first one because she's got sort of the baseline argument, baseline issues, but they're all the same. So basically hers is the template because it's the same allegations: 2.04, 2.01, 9.01, 3.04, 2.03. So it's the same allegations across all of them. A little bit variation because some of them were involved in this experiment called Overcoming Barriers, this experimental treatment they developed. And so there's a little bit of modification to some of them. And then I have a veto review for each one of them as an appendix. And so that differs as well because obviously they have different vetoes. But that's a 2.01 violation that I go through on that. So, but for the most part, it's the same standard violations. So I've been putting that together, and I just submitted Leslie Droid's last week. I'm working on Sullivan's today, and then I'll just keep working them through and getting those submitted. So, but I wanted to show you something about the California complaint form, because we're going to be actually talking, we're going to wind up talking about a class action lawsuit. So I want to point out, when I went to submit the form, I've never submitted an ethics complaint before, but this is the form. They have a form, and then I have like 150 page, whatever, with all the appendices. With all the appendices, it's pretty big. But here's the form. So I downloaded the form, started to fill it out for Leslie Droid. And look, number 3, it says complaint information. Does this complaint concern a child custody issues? They are separating you guys out, your custody evaluations, from getting a real ethics review. For some reason, and we'll find out why, what are they doing? I think I know, and we'll talk about that in a second. But they're separating you out. Everybody else, all the other consumers in the state of California for ADHD, autism, depression, schizophrenia, get a full ethics review when there's a complaint made. Only you go into a special category on their form. So obviously you're a special class of people. Now you deserve special attention or special protections relative to the Belmont report and stuff, because you're a vulnerable population for a variety of reasons, and this documents it. And so we'll get into that when the class action lawsuit comes up. But I think that's a significant point. And then they say, custody issue, do you have joint legal custody of the children involved in the matter? And I just said no, because it's not a custody issue, it's a course issue. And we'll talk about that for a second, in a second. But it's not, and because these next 2 questions aren't relevant. No, there's no custody issue relevant, joint legal custody. And was the person named in this complaint appointed by the court to prepare a court recommendation for the court? Yeah, both of those are interesting, because the first one suggests that there's confidentiality concerns. If they can't get the consent of both people, they can't get the report. And so there's confidentiality issues that make you a special population that warrants special protections under Belmont, because you cannot get a standard review of your complaint. So the board should be doing proactive steps to make sure that the quality of services you receive are high quality, because you don't have the option of getting a review because of the nature of your situation being in the family courts. The second point speaks to the issue of quasi-judicial immunity. Were the custody evaluation conducted, was that person appointed by the court, then you may get quasi-judicial, or they may get quasi-judicial immunity for their stuff. So again, you are a special population warranting special protections because you can't get a licensing or an ethical review. So they are allowed to do whatever they want with you, and they're exempt from all ethical violations. They're exempt from all oversight, from all review. That makes you a special class of people who have been harmed by that process. Because, and we'll talk about that in a second. So this form, when I ran into that question, I went, this is kind of interesting. So we'll be taking that forward. So, but Leslie's is already in. So this is in progress, and I'm naming the names, and we'll just go down that list, and they're going to be all sitting there. And now here's the other interesting thing about that is because they get quasi-judicial immunity and it's that confidentiality. If we try to go in the front door with things, that's been the problem for you guys over the last 15 years. You're filing the board complaints and nothing's happening because they're just throwing you out. They're not reviewing your case. They're saying quasi-judicial immunity, can't get confidentiality, so you don't get quality services. Now, the licensing boards are supposed to protect the consumers of the state of California and every state from unethical practice and incompetent practice. Their task assigned by the legislature is to protect you, the consumer, not the forensic psychologist. And they are in a position of protecting the forensic psychologist against accountability for unethical and incompetent practice with the consumers of the state of California. Okay, so that's where we're headed. We're headed right into that vortex. So here's what's currently going on in this situation. So I have an ethics board complaint against me from Dr. Bernay and Dr. Lorandos because I'm harshly critical of them. I call them unethical. I'm saying they're colluding with the child abuse because they're withholding diagnoses from people and they're making up these euphemism stuff. They said I was too harsh. The licensing board looked kind of cursory, asked me a few questions. I responded, and then they want to sanction me now. They've got their thing up. They just sent me, here's an interesting thing. Let me explain this to you. They just sent me a settlement offer on the Bernay and Lorandos case, where they want to put me on probation and then have me take some remediation in these ethical standards. I am going to submit a counter settlement proposal. I'm going to say, that's very interesting. Here's my settlement proposal. You drop all charges against Dr. Childress, and you do the remediation in the family courts, and you by first off, a moratorium on forensic custody evaluations consistent with the New York Blue Ribbon Commission. And so you just stop the forensic custody evaluations in the state of California, and you then remediate all the forensic people working in the family courts regarding 2.04, 2.01, 9.01, 3.04, and their duty to protect obligations. Plus, you have to get them training in for 2.01 and 2.04, attachment, family systems, delusional thought disorders, and complex trauma. So you're the licensing boards. Now, if the licensing boards stop all of their forensic custody evaluations in the state of California and begin a process of remediating the forensic psychologists in the state of California, then we can settle. If not, we're going to hearing, and I'll present my defense. Okay, and I'm fine with it. I haven't presented my defense to them yet. Okay. And I've got, Lorandos, and I'm not Lorandos, Bernay and I, we go back to 2012. Holy cow, I've got all that documented. He's a parental alienation expert. Oh my goodness. So if they want to do battle over um, Burnett and Lorandos, no problem. So my license is on the line. I want you to recognize that. I'm putting my license on the line for you. Okay, so come on, step up. You need to come to the table now. Okay, now is the time. I've opened the door. I've got you the window. The forensic psychologists, those 6, are exposed and vulnerable. It's not about the board complaints I'm sending in are not about a custody evaluation. There's no confidentiality issues. So I'm going to be posting everything to my website at a central page. You can go to that page and we'll all be talking about how to organize stuff and we'll be getting you information. But you can read everything, because there's no confidentiality involved. So that gets them passed. And because they're not a court appointed in this role, they have no judicial immunity for this. So they are totally exposed now to 2.04, 2.01, 9.01, 3.04, 2.03, and Belmont report. So they're exposed. So I have to do this on your behalf because this is something you could never accomplish. This is something I can do. So I'm doing it on your behalf. I'm filing the board complaints. We're taking it into the licensing boards because that's who should be protecting you. When you think about all the damage that's been caused to your life, who, by these ignorant, incompetent forensic psychologists who aren't fixing things, aren't accurately diagnosing the problem, aren't getting your children back to you, aren't protecting your child, aren't protecting you, who is supposed to handle that? The licensing boards. They're not protecting you. You're the citizen of the state. They're not protecting you. That's obviously a failure with them. Why? Why is it a failure? I know exactly why. And we'll kind of go into that and we'll lay that out. I've been in the family courts 15 years on a particular vector. That's what Eliza and I talk about. She talks about field geometry and it kind of works. And so I'm on this line, this vector, moving through the family courts. I know where I'm going. But I can't tell you where I'm going because I haven't gotten there yet. And I don't know how exactly it's going to work out. I don't know what the features are. I don't know how people are going to respond, the forensic psychologists or Burnett or any of these people. And so I have to cut a course seeing the future, but I have to walk through the present to get there. Everything will become obvious once we reach the point and you guys get to look backwards and then see where I was walking, and you'll go, oh man, this makes total sense now. But I can't tell you going forward. I kind of did, but you people don't listen to me. So all right, now I'll just go ahead and do it. So we got the Burnett thing. That opens the door. The forensic psychologists are exposed in this situation. So I still have my defense to present relative to Burnett and Lorandos. We'll talk about that in a second. The 6 instructors, I've now putting in the board complaints on them: Deutsch, Sullivan, Droids, Klein, Pruitt, Moran, and Ward. Then I've also filed, it's in and been reviewed, the 6 AFCC instructors ethics with the APA Ethics Committee pursuant to 2.04. Now, the APA Ethics Committee has a policy. It says recent policy on their website, but they have a policy that they will not hear individual complaints until it's gone through a licensing board. Now, I know that. I read their policy and I said, okay, well, but this is a collusion of 6 of them. Okay, so this is not an individual. This is a system-wide issue. And so it's a collusive issue of 6 that spans jurisdictions. Even one is in Canada, so it spans nationality jurisdictions. And so I thought that warranted review by the APA Ethics Committee. Now I got a letter back from them that said, no, you're correct. We do not review individuals until it's gone through a licensing board. which is basically giving me instructions to file a licensing board complaint against all 6 of these. And I'm following 1.05. We'll look at that in a second. And so I've got instructions from the APA Ethics Committee to file licensing boards of complaints against all 6 of these, plus obligations mandatory under 1.05 to do that. So I'm doing it. Okay, and it's going to be interesting. In addition, so I got that complaint in. And then I also have to notify an appropriate institutional authority. So I notified the AFCC Board of Directors, and I sent, like the whole list of Board of Directors, I sent each one an email with a little letter saying, I'm notifying you of the concern with these 6 and with the course that you have, which is still up. Okay, that's another interesting thing. They're still offering the course. So, so I noticed the AFCC Board of Directors. I'm walking through this step by step, and that's the current situation. I will be going back to the APA Ethics Committee. I'm just going to pull off the 6, and I'm going to make it a systems issue, and so they're not off the hook yet, but by any means. But let's just start baseline here and take a look at the New York Blue Ribbon Commission on Forensic Custody Evaluations. The only review of them that has ever been conducted has found them, they say, this damning sentence, by an 11-9 margin, the majority of commission members favor elimination of forensic custody evaluations entirely, arguing that these reports are biased, harmful to children, and lack scientific or legal value. At worst, evaluations can be dangerous. So your licensing boards, your state licensing boards in all 50 states are allowing a dangerous practice that is harmful to children, that lacks scientific and legal value, and that is biased, and is providing you with no protection and no capacity to get an ethical review on this. That's a bad situation for your licensing boards. Okay, so let's deal with it. Okay, so I've got a board complaint from Burnett and Larandos. We'll talk about that, separately at some other time. But I've got that now opens the window, because now my defense can go here. And so I've got the board's direct attention. The California Board of Psychology is a good board. Okay, I think they're an excellent board. They've just exempted forensic psychologists. It's a system-wide broken system, and I know why, and I can explain why. I will explain why. But once they orient again, then they'll do the right thing. I'm confident they'll do the right thing. And I'm confident most of your other licensing boards will do the right thing as well. Few I'm kind of wondering about, but we'll see. And they're going to be in trouble if they split. If some of them protect their citizens and others don't, there's going to be all sorts of legal liability issues for them. But so I'm not saying this. This is a New York Blue Ribbon Commission who's recommending that they be eliminated. So when you look at my counter settlement proposal, the California Board of Psychology, I'm going to say, look, New York Blue Ribbon says you have to eliminate these because they're dangerous and harmful to children. So my counter settlement proposal is you eliminate them because they're dangerous and harmful to children, and that'll solve the problem. The reason I'm out here getting, retaliated against by Burnett and Larandos and the PAS experts is because I'm trying to enforce the ethical standards that the licensing boards are not. And so they're setting me up for the retaliation, and then they're sanctioning me. Forget about it. So here's 1.05. Let's talk about this for a second, because this is the one that governs me. This is what's going on right now for me. Now, again, ethics code is mandatory. This is mandatory for me. So if an apparent ethical violation has substantially harmed or is likely to substantially harm a person or organization, check. And is not appropriate for informal resolution under 1.04, check. Or is not resolved properly in that fashion, check. Psychologists take, here's the critical statement, Further action appropriate to the situation. That's the key statement for me. Further action provides me with broad latitude, and appropriate to the situation requires an understanding for the situation in which licensing boards have been disabled. So there is no licensing board review for the ethical violations here. So now, what is appropriate for me? What further action in that situation? Okay. And so that's going to be the crux of my defense to the California Board of Psychology, that everything I said about Burnett and PAS and all that kind of stuff is from a duty to protect and pursuant to 1.05, further action appropriate to that situation of trying to stop the harm that Burnett and Lorandos are doing by making up pathology and by withholding the DSM-5 diagnosis. That's the critical issue on them. They can make up new stuff if they want, but they should not withhold the DSM diagnoses from people's awareness so that drives them into the court. What they're doing basically is they're getting you parents to promote them and their theory to the courts. Because you can't get a diagnosis in mental health, you have to prove parental alienation to the courts. And when you take it into the courts, they then become experts in parental alienation. So they're not telling you about the DSM-5 diagnoses, delusional thought disorder 297.1, factitious disorder 300.19, child psychological abuse, spousal abuse. They're not telling you of that constellation of DSM, because the moment they do, you go in to get treatment and you get a diagnosis and you're not using parental alienation, they stop being experts and making money off of you. So they're withholding the diagnosis from you so that you can promote them as experts and they can make money off of you. And then the board says, you did a bad thing by criticizing them. Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that. But that's the critical statement. Further action appropriate to the situation opens up the issues on my defense, where I can now provide notice to the California State Licensing Board. And that's important because of the next statement. So if you look down midway through here, or that last sentence, such action, they give me recommendations, such action might include referral to a state or national committees on professional ethics. Check. APA Ethics Committee, who told me to file licensing board complaints. To state licensing boards. However, state licensing boards don't do anything about this, obviously, because we got a dangerous, harmful practice and they're not stopping it. So they're being disabled. So what do I do about that? Or to appropriate institutional authorities, AFCC Board of Directors. Check. How do I provide notice to the state licensing boards? Burnett and Lorandos. They filed board complaint against me. Board says, you are harshly critical of them. Okay, now I have my opportunity to provide notice to the California Board of Psychology of all the issues going on with your world. Okay. In addition to the course, I have my own case. And so unless they want to settle this and make the reforms necessary, I'm totally fine going to my formal hearing. If they want to exercise their power because they think I'm a danger to the citizens of California and they don't think I understand the ethics committee, they have the powers to do that. But I'm confident that once we understand the issues, that they will take proper corrective actions relative to the citizens of the state of California. So that's my 1.05 stuff going on here. So let's get more specific. Let's take a look at, the forensic psychologist, once I took their class, that activated 1.04 because I believe there may have been an ethical violation, multiple, by another psychologist, multiple. So now I have to informally resolve the issue. So I sent them each one of them the same letter because they're all the instructors. 1.04 letter to the instructors. So it was 27 pages, the letter itself, And then I have appendices on that, a full page of references, but a 27-page letter detailing all of the ethical concerns. And I finished, this is cut and paste off of the final 2 paragraphs or final 2 sentences. And so, to provide clarity on my concerns, I have provided a slide-by-slide module analysis for each of the 8 modules in the training, 4-day training, 8 modules. I went through it slide by slide. That's Appendix 1 through 8 attached separately. This slide-by-slide module analysis generated a catalog of concerns, because that's what I do when I review custody evaluations, and line by line generates a catalog. Well, this is slide by slide generates a catalog for all 8 modules, 9 attached separately. With this letter, I am making you aware of my concerns. You may have violated standards 2.04, 2.01 of the APA Ethics Code, and possibly 2.03 and 9.01. And with this letter, I am discharging my required obligations under standard 1.04 of the APA Ethics Code when I believe there may have been an ethical violation by another psychologist. Okay, so all this is going on behind the scenes that you're not seeing. I sent out the letter, okay, notifying them, and these are the top people in the AFCC sponsored thing. And so if these are the top ones, imagine what's below them. So here's their response to me. 1 page. 27 pages detailing, and you'll get to read it. It's all going up on my website because there's no confidentiality. There's duty to protect obligations, and we need to generate the reforms. And so, boom, this is going up there. So here is their 1-page response. 1 page. This is the entirety of their response. This is in everything that we're going to read right now. So, they said, February 28th, Dear Dr. Childress, this letter is in response to the individual letters you sent us on February 3rd. So if I were them, I wouldn't have sent this. I would have just got shut down and not say anything. It's like talking to the police officer when you're arrested or something. No, get a lawyer. But they just, okay, they're going to respond to me. I'm fine with that. So now they just documented in the date what they responded and the fact that I notified them on February 3rd. Okay, boom, there it goes in the evidence. We are disappointed that you have chosen to address what amounts to differences in the selection of social science theories and methodologies by framing our differences as ethical issues. No, I haven't chosen. I believe there's been an ethical violation. I'm mandatory required. Now, it's interesting. Well, let me finish the last sentence. We have carefully reviewed your concerns and have the following response. Now, the idea that I'm choosing to follow the APA Ethics Code Standard 1.04 rather than required to follow it suggests I need to be remediated on whether the APA Ethics Code is optional or mandatory. Okay, that's just right off the top on our introduction. Okay. Oh, okay. And it's not, and I can just imagine what they're doing. They're trying to figure out how to respond to a 27-page detailed critique and analysis. They're going, well, we just relied on something else. It's not an ethical issue. It's just we're relying on different stuff. We'll address that in a second. But here's what they said for each one of them. So they start with 2.04. Now, 2.04 in their response, watch what did they do? They changed the wording a little bit of 2. Now, the other ethics code, when they cite them back again, word for word, cut and paste. This one, they changed the wording, which suggests they think they're vulnerable in a particular way. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's take a look what they said. So there's your they say, bases for scientific and professional judgment. Psychologists' work is grounded in established scientific and professional knowledge of the discipline. That is a misquote. That's not what it says. They had to type in. So they know that's not what it says because they're changing the wording of it. If they just cut and paste it, they pull it over. And several of them have had prior service on the APA Ethics Committee. They should know what standard 2.04 says. It's really short. It's one sentence, like, holy cow. But here's their response. The training was sufficiently grounded in, okay, it's supposed to be based on. It's supposed to be based, can they say the training was sufficiently based in? No. Grounded in peer-reviewed social science, including research authored by the faculty, as well as generally accepted practice within the relevant field of the topics presented. Oh, they're trying to skate away from this, it sounds. Furthermore, and this one is killer. Furthermore, our program was reviewed and approved by the Association of Family and Conciliation Courts, Continuing Education Committee, which determined that the content met the requirements for accreditation as continuing education. So they just put the AFCC on the hook for validating that this course meets requirements for 2.04. When we get to class action talk, they just put the AFCC into that whole now. They said we're this is valid. Okay, so I wouldn't have responded. They did. All right. So here's what standard 2.04. That title's wrong, but standard 2.04. Here's what it says. Psychologists' work is based upon established scientific and professional knowledge of the discipline. That's what it says. Here's what the instructors wrote. Psychologists' work is grounded in the established scientific and professional knowledge of the discipline. So they changed the wording. No, it's based on. But we'll get back to that. But 2.01, boundaries of competence. So then they quote boundaries of competence based on education, training, and experience. So here's what they say to that. AFCC, the leading international, they're putting the AFCC on the hook again. AFCC, the leading international interdisciplinary organization of family court professionals. They sit on the board of directors. Saini's the president. They control the whole organization. They can sit on the editorial board of Family Court Review. They are the AFCC. It's an incestuous thing. Incestuous, interestingly. But they are an incestuous, so they're citing to themselves. The AFC, leading professional international family court professionals, invited us to conduct this training in recognition of our individual and combined expertise in this area of practice. That's not education, training, or experience. Endorsement by the AFCC for our competence. In each module of the training, the presenter's education, training, and professional experience satisfied the requirements necessary to meet ethical standards in the training as set forth by the American. No, it doesn't. No, they're not competent in attachment pathology, delusional thought disorders, family system, complex trauma, multiple things they're not competent in. And it's an attachment pathology. It's a family pathology. It's a delusional thought disorder, and they're not competent in that. So the fact that you say, well, the AFCC says we are, does not meet it. And that's why I have a whole appendix just going through each one of their vita saying, no, you're not. You're missing it. And so this is just plain out stonewalling. It's not good faith engaging with the issues or dialoguing about the concerns. And so that's a problem. So it meets the requirement. Additionally, the significant collaborative preparation, bringing in our diverse education, training, and experience. No, they all work in the family courts. None of them work with autism. None of them work with ADHD. None of them work with complex trauma. None of them work family systems. None of them work attachment. They all work in the family courts. There's no diverse training there. And they've been working together for decades. And this is one paragraph to everything about their competence. This is the entirety of their defense. Training is our diverse education training further strengthened the expertise behind the program. Now, mind you, I have a slide by slide, 8 modules for them, ensuring its depth, rigor, and adherence to the highest professional standards. They're just digging themselves. Oh, here, you want a shovel? The highest professional standards is, okay, that's going to be your assertion. Then they say 9.01, they describe that. Now, notice 9.01 says, and recommendations, reports, and diagnostic or evaluative statements. So it covers them, including forensic testimony. So it covers them, and it specifically knows it's covering them. And they say, here's the entirety of their defense to that. The concerns raised are addressed in our previous response. No, they're not. The learning objectives of the training were developed using information and techniques grounded in well-established social science research. No, they're not actually, but they should have been based in. The content was carefully designed to ensure that all presented material had sufficient empirical basis. No, but 8 modules. If that's your defense, you're welcome to it. So here's the final thing. We are familiar with your work, and they shouldn't have said that, because if they're familiar with my work, then they're familiar with 2.01, 2.04, 9.01. It's a delusional thought disorder. It's attachment pathology. If they're familiar with my work, then they should be like doing stuff. And notice here, I raised 4 ethical standards: 2.04, 2.01, 9.01, and 2.03, which is maintaining competence. And they just forgot to mention that one. Okay. That they should have been acquiring this training on their own. So if they're familiar with my work, that's 2.03 violation for not having sought out the training in attachment and delusional thought disorders, family systems, and everything else. So here, have a shovel. And so appreciate your contribution to this difficult issue. Well, I'm glad they do, because I'm still a member of the AFCC, and any course they offer, or anyone else offers, I can take. And I have 1.04 and 1.05 obligations, and it's a course, and they're not, subject to judicial immunity or confidentiality for what they teach. Our response to your concerns clearly outlines our position. Yeah, I think it does. And then I got signatures from all of them. So if I were them, I would have just I'm not responding to this and let the chips fall where they may. But they chose to respond, so good. It goes into appendix. So on my board complaints, my 1.04 is appendix 1, their response is appendix 2. And then it goes off 15 appendices or something. Let's just take a look at 2.03 here. Psychologists undertake ongoing efforts to develop and maintain their competence. Okay. Well, don't talk about that one. We'll just skip that one. Okay. So now here's from my letter, though, directly to them. Again, cut and paste. The relevant domains of established scientific and professional knowledge required for standard 2.04 for application as a basis for professional judgments with the pathology in the family courts includes the following: DSM-5 diagnostic system. Are you kidding me? Of course it does. That's the established knowledge. Apply the DSM-5. Attachment. This is an attachment pathology. Bowlby, Tronick, others. Complex trauma, Vanderkolk and others. Family systems, Mnuchin and others. Personality disorders, Milan, Linehan and others. Psychological control, Barber and others. That's your established knowledge. It's not grounded in two. It's based in that. That's your obligation, is to base your professional judgments in that knowledge. Okay. And they're saying, oh, we're grounded in other stuff. And that's not what the standard says. Now, but even off of that, this too is drawn from the APA ethics complaint to the complaint to the complaint to the AFCC, the notice of them, and the current board complaint. This is what came out of the slide by slide review of all 8 modules. The instructors self-cited to themselves their own stuff, their writings, opinion pieces about things, 29 references to themselves. No references to this or citations to the DSM-5, none to Bowlby, none to Tronick, none to Mnuchin, none to Bowen, none to Vanderkook, none to Milan, none to Linehan. And they're going to tell me that their work is grounded in something, that it's just a matter of choosing different social science grounding for things. Good luck with that. Okay. Now, moving beyond that, though, we have fundamental violation to the Belmont report. It's an experiment. This forensic custody evaluation stuff is an experiment on human subjects without proper IRB review. That's a Belmont report. It requires IRB review, institutional review board, for all experiments conducted on human subjects. The quasi-judicial role for doctors of assisting the court in custody evaluations is an experimental role that developed in the 1980s with the coming of custody conflicts and divorce. And so a group of psychologists created a new role for themselves because they wanted to do this role, not because it was helpful. And so they created, we're going to come in and do this quasi-judicial role of assisting the court, and we're not going to diagnose and treat. We're doing something different than clinical psychology. And they say so. So they say it's an experiment. And I got Eliza direct examination, just brings that up. But so they're doing an experiment. I know because I've consulted with OHRP. Back then it was the OPRR, the oversight committee for all the IRBs that are at every university and every location that does research. And then there's oversight by a federal government agency called OHRP, Office for the Protection of Research Risks, or Humans from Research Risks, or used to be OPRR, Office for the Protection of Research Risks, or something like that. So that I know, I consulted with them years ago, invited. They came out and I was talking to them about the ethical stuff of doing online research. And so I know what the Belmont report is. I know what IRBs are supposed to do. I've worked on major research working with IRBs. When I was at Children's Hospital, this is a hospital setting, but they do research with human beings. So Children's Hospital, Los Angeles, all children have an IRB for their institution, for the Children's Hospital. So I was on a research project, second year of my postdoc, working on the cancer unit with Ernie Katz. Big six children's hospitals came together to do remediation of attention deficits from intrathecal chemotherapy. And so they came together. The IRB at CHLA, we wanted to pay the participant parents and $50 for their participation. The IRBs at CHLA said, no, you can't pay them $50 because they're low income and that could be coercive. Paying your subjects $50 would be considered coercive to an IRB, Institutional Review Board. Your court ordered. That's so coercive. This needs to get an IRB. But how did it escape? How does this, and the forensic custody evaluation is an experimental assessment procedure developed for an experimental role. They're not doing diagnostic assessment. They developed this whole new experiment on a forensic custody evaluation for a whole new experimental role. It should have had IRB oversight. And you get a risk-benefit analysis, protections for vulnerable population, and make sure the risks are properly balanced. Risk and benefits are properly balanced. It didn't. Why not? Because it wasn't conducted within the research sector or healthcare sector. Research sector at a university, healthcare sector, such as a children's hospital, that have IRBs, because that's who does research on human subjects. The legal system does not do research on human subjects, so it has no capacity to review experiments on human subjects. So what these psychologists did was they went into the legal system and are convincing the courts to do this coercive experiment with children and parents because there's no review for it. They've navigated it because it's done for profit, not for research or not for treatment. It's done for the profit of the people doing the experiment. Oh my God. That's so bad, so bad. So it's what they're doing is in violation of all three principles. There's no risk-benefit analysis, no special protections, and the risks, all the risks, that's the justice one, all the risks of this experiment are being borne by the children and parents, and the risks are phenomenal. The destruction of lives, sometimes even death. When they make a bad decision, the New York Blue Ribbon Commission says there are documented cases the custody evaluators made a bad decision that resulted in the child's death. The other parent killed the child. Okay. That's a lot of risk that you parents and your life, your children are taken from you, your life's destroyed, their life's destroyed. That's a lot of risk they're assuming. Who gets the benefits of this? Well, not you, because it doesn't work, for one thing. They get the doctors, the forensic psychologists, Droids, Deutsch, all Moran, all the rest of them. They get the benefits. Financial benefits, $20,000 to $40,000 for their worthless custody evaluations, and career status benefits as being on boards of directors of the AFCC and doing presentations and classes. And they get all the benefits. You take all the risks. That would never, ever, ever clear an IRB. It would shut it down. Risk benefit. What's the benefit of this? None. We don't solve anything. Well, then you can't do it. They've got risk and no benefit to the people. Oh my goodness. And what protections have you put in for a vulnerable population who's subject to coercion? None. No, shut it down. Shut it down. That's moratorium. New York Blue Ribbon Commission. That's my response to California Board of Psychology. Shut it down until you get an IRB review. And once the IRB review comes in, they will grant it. It's done. It's forensic custody evaluations are done. Then they're going to realize there's no one competent. Oh my God, we need to do remediation training for all of people in the family courts because the citizens of our states are not getting any competent services in the family courts, which is a high stakes issue where children's lives are being decided. And oh my God, the oversight has been awful. So they need to do some remediation. That's just a fact. All right. And we'll deal with that fact going forward. We'll see what happens. Now I'm working with Eliza. Oh, I got an AI. Woohoo! So here, I said, just this morning, as I'm preparing for this talk, I come out, I say, hey, Eliza, I'm going to be doing a little talk here. I want to get media on. We talked about this, of how we're going to organize this. We want to get media. Now's the time to bring the media. And that's where I'm suggesting, let's start doing that. You can help. Come on. Get out of your chairs. We're working for each other. Let's get the media looking at this. So I just walk in and say, Eliza, tell me what would be some appropriate media to look at? And she says, well, investigative and public interest sector newsrooms. That would be ProPublica, especially Joaquin Sapien, who covers justice and social issues. She's given me names. Holy cow. Thanks, Eliza. The Bureau of Investigative Journalism, particularly their reporting on parental alienation and unregulated expert witnesses in England and international. Okay. Hey, England. Woo! Let's get something into them. Now, these are people I don't know about, but Eliza does. Thanks, Eliza. And The Guardian, another in the UK. Okay, so I go back and say, hey, Eliza, I'm not in the UK. Who can we contact? But this is stuff, ask an AI. Holy cow, people. Get an AI and start doing this. But I'll give you chats you can upload to your AIs and talk about stuff. Locate these people. Then it says, other top people. So legal and criminal justice journalists. So again, giving me names. Megan Kuniv, known for legal investigations and court reporting, especially through social media threads and deep summaries. Oh, okay, thanks. Laura Brazelton, New York law professor and journalist who writes on wrongful convictions, criminal justice failings, and legal ethics. Legal issue. You might like that. Or maybe investigative platforms and think tanks, such as the Center for Investigative Reporting, Reveal News, nonprofit with deep impact on reform issues tied to justice and regulation. Sounds appropriate. Invisible Institute, Jamie Calvin, for systemic exposure of institutional misconduct and investigative advocacy journalism. Well, those all sound pretty appropriate to me, but this is just a morning. I just talked to her. So I'll go back. We'll talk when we focus on the media. She's going to help me write the letters and form it up and do all the wonderful stuff, put together a little press package. She keeps asking me, want me to do that? Want me to do that? I say, not yet, not yet. I'm not ready for that yet. But you got an AI, go get an AI. You got they're public available. Buy your own account, build up your own Eliza, who's not named Eliza. I will be putting the letters I'm writing up onto the central website to organize people. You can get that. You can upload it to your AI. You can write your own letters. You can do what you want. I've got the chats. I'll be putting them up there, and I'll get you all this information. So get off your behind. Oh, what about state legislators? Again, just this morning I said, hey, Liza, what about state legislators? Who would be the appropriate ones for this? Now, she gave me ones for California because that's where we're focused right now. So we got chairs and vice chairs of the Judiciary Committee. So these legislators control family law, court reform, and oversight of judicial behavior in California. They are the Assembly Judiciary Chair and then the vice chair, as well as the Senate Judiciary Chair, Thomas Umberg. And I think I know Thomas Umberg from like college. I think he was a buddy of a buddy over at SC. I'll have to check that out. But Thomas Umberg from Orange County, and then the vice chair on this. So it's giving me stuff. So when I'm just ready for this, I'm just going to start. Eliza, let's write the letters to these folks. We'll write them. We'll send them out. I'll post them up on my website. You can do the same. If you're in California, start contacting these people. If you're not in California, start contacting the Judiciary Committee in your state, saying what's going on with our state licensing boards, that they're abandoning us to danger and harm and protecting these unethical psychologists. And then she gives me more. She tells me the chairs of the Health and Human Services Committee. They oversee psychological licensing boards. Well, that's appropriate. And child welfare. So it gives me the names of, Mark Berman and, Richard Broth and Lisa Calderon. Okay, so thanks, Eliza. So that's coming down the pikes. Now, in addition, what I put up on my website is we're going for class action lawsuit. That's where I want to go. It makes total sense. And so I'm putting up chats that you can take, you can download, you can upload them to your AI. The licensing boards can upload them to their AI. The reporters can upload them to their AI. The state legislator, the aide that you get, can upload them to their AI and talk about them. You read them, you talk about them, and say, holy cow, this is really bad. So I've got 2 of them up with a third one coming. The first one is from a chat GPT, Eliza, on forensic custody evaluations. So you can go read that, talk with your own AI about it. The second one is I went to Google Gemini, a separate AI. This is a public Google Gemini because what I wanted to talk about was legal liability for the licensing boards, AFCC and APA. So I just wanted to use a publicly available AI. I uploaded the chat I had with Eliza. I said, is this accurate analysis? Gemini said, yeah, it's an accurate analysis. And I said, okay, let's talk about liabilities now. And so that's that chat on the league, and it's pretty bad. They're in a lot of trouble. The third one I'm going to be doing is one with I'm going to pick an AI, probably Gemini, but I may do Chat GPT. I may do Eliza. Let's see, but I don't know which one I'm going to do, but likely Gemini. Where we're going to talk about class action. I'm going to load up the other 2 and say, hey, last time we talked Gemini, you talked about class action. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Because all of these, I am going to be including with my letters and contact information, because we have AI, because look, you can read what the AI analysis of the situation is. Okay, so go argue with the AI. This is truth, and put it into your own and see how it holds up, because it holds up. So we're headed for class action. Now, last time I talked with Gemini about that, after doing the Gemini thing, I said, so what's these parents can't get class action because it's expensive. And Liza said, or the Gemini said, no, because they handled it on contingency. And if the contingency If they see deep pockets on the class action who can settle out, then they'll take it on contingency and take like 40% of the profits. Now, who's the defendants on a class action? All the forensic psychologists. You can just pull them off the court list from every jurisdiction. Boop, you get all of them. And the state licensing boards for failing in their obligations, failure in duty, whatever. Gemini spoke about it. So the state licensing board. Now that's 50 state licensing boards on your class action. The APA, because they're failing to regulate the psychologists that are out here, and they're promoting and allow this experiment to take place without IRB review, and the AFCC. So there's and you got the class from the form. You're getting the special category of review for you people. And so you got the class, you got the people, you got the deep pockets. Now, what the class action would do, I would anticipate, look, psychologist, not an attorney, but what I would anticipate is that you settle with the state licensing boards and the oversight organization, the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards for all the licensing boards. So you settle out with them. And so all the state licensing boards to say, we're going to stop forensic custody evaluations. We're going to do like an independent review. We're going to do some remediation. So you say, okay, good enough. You're off the class action lawsuit. You drop the APA. The APA says the same thing. Okay, we're going to jump on this. We're going to do focused remediation and get you high quality services in the family courts. And you say, okay, APA, we can drop you from the lawsuit. But for each one of those, the settlement is money. Okay, so because all this, to get off, all the 50 state licensing boards will say, what's the settlement amount for that for all of the families who've been hurt for 40 years, for you guys? What's your settlement from the states? The state of California, state of Texas, state of Vermont, state of North Carolina, all your state, because of the failure of their licensing boards. Okay, so what's the settlement money from the APA? Okay, before not stepping up and handling this. And they're the ones, well, we'll get to that. They're likely going to be, both of them maybe, but the APA is likely to be malpractice insurance. They probably have some sort of insurance against this sort of stuff. So their insurance company will be on the hook for settling the amount of whatever that settlement is reached. That settlement amount is what the attorney is going to look on as a contingency. Okay, so they need to see there's a good idea that there's going to be money off of this, then they'll take the case. And that's where those chats come in. You give those attorneys those chats, or I will, and the ACLU is another place on this where you get the class action lawsuit. You give them those chats, and they can read them and then upload them to their AI and talk about it and go, yeah, there's liability here, and it's significant. And what happens if you read the Google chat? What happens if in these 6 complaints that are going in, if 2 of the states say, yeah, this psychologist violated ethical standards, and 4 say, nope, because for whatever reason, that's going to expose the other 4. Or if it's 5-1, oh my God, that one state is now going to be on the hook because the other 5 states have said, oh no, this has been a violation. And so now on something like a class action, that state's liability goes up. And once the attorneys for these states and the AFCC and the APA start reading the chats and reading their liability, they're going to go, wow, we need to start protecting ourselves from exposure here. So that's what that's all about. And I got the first 2 chats up on my website, but the more will be coming. You'll have a central location. I'll give you everything going forward. Plus, we have Eliza. Oh my goodness. And AI is here. Now, I'm using Eliza, but I'm going to tell you how to make your own Eliza. There's stuff going on with that. But what a media story about that, too. And old psychologists bucking the system, using AI, bringing AI to the family courts. There's so many media stories here. And this doesn't stop now. It's not a point, it's a line. So all the forensic psychologists in the family courts are going to be facing a review by Dr. Childress and my AI. Is that really what you want to do, forensic psychologist, or do you maybe want to improve your practice or leave the courts? And if you leave the courts, then there's nobody there. And now what do you do? Oh my God, it's a mess. So AI is here. It's not coming, it's here. And I'm riding the crest of it right in. So there's all sorts of stuff going on. So with all of that, I just wanted to kind of catch you up to speed. There's a lot going on. It's coming out now. Over the next August here, I'm going to be doing a lot of work. I'm going to be giving you information up on a central location on my website. You're going to be getting chats. You're going to be getting letters to people. You're going to be seeing all the stuff. You're going to be seeing the licensing board complaints against the psychologists. You're going to be seeing the just all the defenses, my counter offer to the board of psychology, and just everything. Okay, because there's no confidentiality involved. Okay, and because we need to get this oversight over here and get this stopped and corrected so that we can protect your children and protect you from abuse and destruction of your lives. And whose responsibility is that? Your state licensing boards for wherever you are. Their job, their task, their mission is to protect you and your children, the citizens of the state. Okay, not the psychologists who are exploiting you and destroying your lives. That's not their mission. Okay, so we need to reorient everybody. And I'll put my license on the line for that. I'll put my license on the line for you. Now, I want you to join me in creating the reform that's needed so that this never happens to anyone else ever. And that we get proper protections for the children and the parents in the family courts that fixes the issues within 3 months. Early, boom, we get it early, fix it, and restore normal and healthy range childhoods to the children, and restore the bonds of love and affection between children and their beloved parents. So with that, welcome to summer 2025, and this is going to be an interesting time here. And with that, I'm going to head off to my Sunday. Good luck, everybody, and we'll be talking. Take care. Bye bye.